Alright, guys, welcome to Flavo Rihanna's MMA show. I'm your host, Flavo Rihanna, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. Alright, guys, UFC 280 is officially in the books. Wow, so this card, from top to bottom, was a pretty good card, alright? The UFC, the fans, like people like myself, we are all, counting on this card to being one of the best fights of 2022. All right. And actually, I gotta say, yeah. I'm not gonna go as a full 10, okay? But it definitely lived up to the price worth that this pay-per-view did cost. Okay. The main event, Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira. Co-main event, Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw. What's it called? Third fight from the main card, Piotr Yan versus Sean O'Malley. Then we had Benil Dariush versus Mateusz Gamrot. And then the opener was Caitlin Chikagian versus Manon Fiorot. That's a good main card over there. We also had, to kicking off the prelims, was Carol Hoza versus Lena Landsberg. Then you had, what's it called? The Manchester, prospect that is Muhammad Makhachev versus Malcolm X Gordon. Armin Petrosian versus AJ Dobson. We had Abubakar Nurmagomedov versus Gatsev, I trying to see if I can pronounce this guy's name correctly. Omar Gadzev, if I pronounce his name correctly. Nikita Krylov versus Volkan Ozdemir. And then we had Kyle Berhalio, okay, versus Magomed Muradov. And then lastly, to kicking off the to doing the feature prelims, it was Bilal Muhammad versus Sean Brady. All right, so why don't we kick it off? You know how you like to do it. We started from the top. It was Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev, the fight that we were all waiting to see. All right, this is what this card was pretty much based off of. This is what many fans wanted to see. People were comparing this to potentially being what we should have gotten a couple years ago, which was Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Right? I think they tried like 3 or 4 times. None were ever successful. These attempts. The last attempt was it was supposed to be for April 2020, but we already knew exactly what had happened. The pandemic. The pandemic had happened, and it shut all those ideas down. Right? And then unfortunately it led to the passing of Khabib's father, Adumanov Nurmagomedov. He ended up passing due to COVID-19, and you pretty much saw the result. Tony ended up fighting Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje, blew the brakes out of Tony Ferguson. Gaethje went to interim lightweight title. He faces Khabib Nurmagomedov on that October to fight Khabib Nurmagomedov and Yas Island in on Fight Island. Fights Khabib Nurmagomedov. Khabib defeats him, puts him to sleep due to a triangle chokehold, and after he retains his belt. He retires. Says that that's his last fight ever. He is going to retire because he promised his mom that he was going to retire, and it was his father's plan. Like the whole thing between Khabib and the father, they were going to do this journey together. Okay. Inputs, the vacancy of the title. It becomes a vacant title bout between Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler in May of 2021. Charles Oliveira drops Michael Chandler and becomes the new lightweight champion. Faces Dustin Poirier in December of 2021. Chokes out Dustin Poirier to retain his lightweight title. Fast forward now to May of 2022. Back to the scene of the crime where Houston was when he ended up winning the belt, if I'm not mistaken. Arizona, that's where the big misconception ended up happening. You had Oliveira missing weight. Didn't matter. Still fought. Justin Gaethje, if he was to defeat Charles Oliveira, he would have become the new lightweight title. If not, the belt would have remained vacant because Oliveira would have to vacate his title for missing weight. He missed weight by half a pound. And Oliveira goes in there, drops Justin Gaethje, submits him, and the belt remains vacant. And then you see that huge scene outside of Charles Oliveira saying that nobody can stop him, only God can stop him. And then later on, you'll hear Justin Gaethje in an interview months down the line saying that Charles Oliveira hits hard. It's very surprisingly how hard he hits, and he predicts that he predicted that Oliveira would stop Islam Makhachev. Now we fast forward to October, where we at 22nd of 2022. Charles Oliveira squares off with Islam Makhachev for the vacant lightweight title, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I hedged. I placed a bet on both fighters. I wasn't sure who was gonna win. I thought that, you know what, that even though Islam was the favorite coming in, it's hard to bet against Charles Oliveira because this man is ridiculous. All right, round one goes. All you just see is Islam utilizing his striking, Oliveira utilizing his striking a little bit. Islam's like, forget this, I'm taking you down. He's not afraid of Oliveira's guard. He's not afraid of Oliveira's ground game whatsoever. And he just takes him down. And he just holds him down there and punishes him little by little. Round two, right? And I was like, all right, Oliveira's trying to move. He's trying to scramble, trying to, utilize submissions in round one. I'm like, we'll see what he does in round two. Round two, what ends up happening, right? We end up seeing Islam utilizing his striking a little bit more, throws the high kick. Oliveira, very reckless, which we have seen in many, many fights of his. He has his hands up, but he doesn't cover his chin. What does Islam do? Gets close enough. He's not scared of Charles Oliveira whatsoever. Drops Charles, right, with a right hand. Capitalizes. Jumps in, right, into full mount. Turns over, adjusts his hands. Gets the hands so it could be a triangle choke, right? Applies the pressure. And what did Khabib and what did Islam say they were going to do? They were going to bring him down to deep waters. They were going to put him in a situation that he's not comfortable in, and they're going to make him tap out. And what did Charles do? He tapped out to the arm triangle. And I was like, wow, the fact that you tapped out a world-class black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Charles Oliveira, who leads, the UFC history-wise in submissions, is incredible right there. All right, they said what they were gonna do. They, followed through with the actions and they accomplished it. It's just like, wow, the Khabib Islam Makhachev corner really spoke it into existence. I was very, very surprised that they were able to stop Oliveira this early into the fight in round two. I was just like, geez, man, you gotta be kidding me. This is not what I expected. I'm not gonna lie to you, I did want Charles to win just because I wanted to see a matchup between how him and Alexander Volkanovski would be. Just because Dana White going into this week did say that the winner of Oliveira and Makhachev is definitely facing Alexander Volkanovski, right? For the lightweight title, right? Or, well, the winner, right, which would be Islam, he would have to defend his lightweight title against Alexander Volkanovski, who is moving up, who is the current featherweight champion, who is moving up to 155 to try to, claim double champ status. Okay, what's next for Charles Oliveira? My personal opinion, it's the fight to make. It's the only fight to make at this very point. You gotta make Benio that. You gotta. Well, let me get there in just a second. But as for Islam, we just are gonna have to do Alex Volkanovski versus Islam Makhachev, right? All right. Moving on to the co-main event, a fight that nobody was talking about, and I was actually very, very excited. I love me some bantamweight fights. All right. Aljamain Sterling, the champ, right, trying to go for his second title defense against TJ Dillashaw, the two-time bantamweight champion. We all know the story. This guy had to relinquish his title because he ended up testing positive for EPO. All right, I know a lot of people hated the fact that he ended up testing positive for that. All right, I was one of them. I was pretty pissed off about it. My whole reason being pissed off about it was he never needed it at 135. I didn't get the whole understanding why he needed to drop down to 125. Dropping down, anybody knows losing weight sucks and it's very, very difficult. But having to cut those 10 extra pounds, and especially if you know that your body isn't gonna make 125 naturally, the fact that he had to use a drug and thought he was gonna be able to get away with it, it just really, really bothers me. And I just didn't really appreciate the fact that he used it against Henry Cejudo, which he ended up losing that fight at the Barclays Center in the very first ESPN card. All right, but he goes in, Aljamain, trying to become the first, I think it was the first ever 3-time bantamweight champion to ever win the gold, 3 times, right? I think the last person to ever win the belt 3 times was Randy Couture, and that was a heavyweight. It doesn't really happen. It doesn't really happen for somebody to win the belt 3 times, right? I mean, we've seen people have long title reigns, but for somebody to win the belt 3 times in 3 different occasions is pretty rare. All right. Way how round 1 goes, Aljamain utilizes the wrestling. What does he do? Grabs the leg, pushes TJ back. Right. TJ tries to break his fall using his left hand. What ends up happening? Falls in a weird motion, pops his shoulder out. All right. And he's wincing in pain, and you see it. I'm thinking, like, what happened? I was like, what ended up happening wrong? Did he take a bad fall? Did something break? Did the collarbone break or something like that? Because I know if that breaks, you're in an excruciating amount of pain. TJ was in a lot of pain. I thought that the fight was going to be over right over there. I had placed a bet on a round and a half of action between Aljamain and Dillashaw. So I'm like, man, my bet's about to go down the drain after this one. What ends up happening? Aljamain just muscles up and just gives him a beating, right? Holds him down, puts him in an awkward position. TJ is now trying to defend these ground and pounds, the transitions, trying to get out of this uncomfortable position of Aljamain Sterling being on top of him with one arm. That is very, very difficult. I don't care how skilled you are. You're not going to get somebody that skilled of Aljamain's level with just one arm, right? He was able to survive the fight going into round 2. And I'm like, wow, this is not going to last long. Head coach of TJ Dillashaw's camp, Dwayne Ludwig, was able to massage the left shoulder, pop it back into place. The shoulder is no longer dislocated, and he was able to resume back to fighting in round 2. What ends up happening, Aljamain notices that the shoulder is still affecting TJ. He attacks it, takes him down. Shoulder pops out again. Keeps on, beating the crap out of TJ Dillashaw, hitting him with so many hammer fists, so much ground and pound, elbows, everything, eating everything but the kitchen sink. And TJ, just can't defend himself. He can't defend himself with one arm. Aljamain was able to get the ref to stop the fight after so much ground and pound action that I'm like, wow. At one point I was like, I kind of felt bad for TJ. I'm like, who knows how the fight would have happened, how it have went down if he was able to use both arms correctly. Do I have any sympathy for him? Not really, just because he did cheat, and I really don't like those that do cheat, especially in a sport like this where you're trying to inflict damage. It's one thing to cheat in baseball, it's one thing to cheat in basketball. But if you're cheating in a sport that requires physical violence like football, boxing, MMA, all right, I'm not going to have really much sympathy for you whatsoever, all right? You're going to try to get a competitive advantage while you're trying to hurt somebody. Doesn't go well in my book, all right? TJ was able to retain the title, go for his second title defense, and the winner of Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley by Dana White was going to get the next title shot. And while we move on to the third fight of the main card, Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley, that's a fight that I was really looking forward to. I'm a big Sugar Sean fan, all right? A huge Sugar Sean fan. Petr Yan did fight Aljamain Sterling twice, all right? in 2020 of 2022 of this year and 2021 of last year. All right, lost the belt because of the illegal knee. All right, and then rematched Aljamain earlier this year in April and just lost by decision. Okay, Petr Yan is fighting somebody that is 10 spots below him, and this is going to be a true test to see whether or not Sugar Sean was going to be able to hang with the top 5, bantamweights of the world, and possibly one of the best bantamweights in this world that we have seen in quite some time. That is Petr Yan. This guy puts a licking on people. He hurts people. He loves to inflict pain, and we were going to see what Sugar Sean is made out of. And what ended up happening? Round 1, close round. All right. You see back and forth action, but you were able to see that Petr Yan utilizing the takedowns, muscling up on Sean O'Malley. All right. And I gave that to Petr Yan. Why? The takedowns, even though Sean was able to land a couple of more significant strikes than Petr Yan, I just felt that the takedowns were more effective in holding him down for the time that he was being held down to, and putting him in situations that Sean O'Malley hasn't been put in, in his time in the UFC. People usually try to just strike with him or just try to leg kick him. It's very rare to see somebody try to take down Sean O'Malley. It's not that they don't want to. It's just, I guess, maybe they get lost in the moment facing somebody that is that big of a name that is Sean O'Malley. Okay, round 2, it's a very Petr Yan fight. All right, Petr Yan attacking the legs, utilizing the body strikes, mainly focusing from waist level down to implement into his striking pedigree, right? To try to slow down Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley is very, very quick. Was very, very fast. It's just mainly left to right, left to right. I did notice that he wasn't opening like different angles and giving Petr Yan different type of reads, which was allowing Petr Yan to strike away at the distance that he wanted to, and then shoot for a takedown whenever he did feel that he was going to get threatened by a strike from Sean O'Malley. Okay, Sean definitely did tag up Petr with the left hand that shook him, and I'm like, whoa, where was I seeing this? Sean really does have punching power. If he's able to hurt somebody like Petr Yan, who is a beast, man, this guy is just all about it. Petr Yan responds back and hits him with a left of his own, hurting Sean. And I felt like he should have just tried to capitalize and take him down and just ground the pound him. What he ended up doing, he had him against the fence and then he took him down. I felt like that allowed Sean O'Malley to buy some time, but they were able to move on to round 3. Round 3, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. Both were going back and forth, right? It was a very close round, right? And all you just see is Petr Yan hurts Sean, and then Sean comes back, goes in with a flying knee, right? Cuts up Petr Yan right about the eyebrow level, and Petr Yan is gushing out blood like you never imagined. And Petr is getting hurt. Petr responds back and starts hitting with damage, hurting Sean, and Petr takes Sean down and starts implementing ground and pound. And we go into the judges' scorecard. I honestly gave it, I gave that round 3 to Sean O'Malley, all right, because he utilized his knees. He was cutting him up. He was styling on him for a good 15, 20 seconds. He was able to, but he got brought down. But I gave still just the damage part to Sean O'Malley, right? So I gave it 29-28. We go into the judges' scorecard, and I'm like, all right, 29-28, Petr Yan, 29-28, Sean O'Malley. And then it said 29-28 with the winner by split decision, Sugar Sean O'Malley. I was like, whoa. I was like, where did they get that extra round from? I was like, how did they feel that Sean O'Malley did enough to win 2 rounds? I got him winning 1 round, but 2 rounds? I was like, you got to look at the tape. And then you see everybody, you see like UFC fighters, Jorge Masvidal, Henry Cejudo, Darren Till, a couple of other fighters, I think it was Derek Brunson, if I'm not mistaken, all pissed off as for why Sean O'Malley was awarded this win. I kind of felt in that same boat. I was like, Sean O'Malley didn't deserve to win this fight. Petr Yan got robbed. I definitely do think that with the decision that how everything transpired, Sean O'Malley doesn't deserve the next title shot. All right. I think it should be somebody else. I think personally, my opinion, give it to Marlon Chito Vera. He knocked out Dominic Cruz. He was the only one to have a fantastic victory. I know that's very, very unlikely for them to give Chito Vera the nod over Sean O'Malley. But I do see there's a world where Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera, could happen as opposed to Chito Vera versus Aljamain Sterling for the belt. I mean, that's just my opinion over there. The second fight from the bottom of the main card was Beneil Dariush versus Mateusz Gamrot. Now, this is a hardcore MMA dream type of a fight. This is something that we were all clamoring about. Mateusz Gamrot, he ended up fighting Arman Tsarukyan not that long ago, earlier in the summer. And Beneil Dariush, we haven't seen him fight since the Tony Ferguson victory. And man, oh man, Beneil Dariush, he did look pretty good. Even with that long layoff, even though he had a fractured ankle back in February when he was originally supposed to fight Islam Makhachev, right? He looked fantastic versus Mateusz Gamrot. The man is an excellent grappler. The man, you could tell that this guy, his pedigree is grappling. I'm sorry. And he held his own. He stuffed a lot of the takedowns that Mateusz Gamrot was trying to oppose on him, okay? And he held his own. And I gave, Gamrot round 1. I gave Beneil round 2. And I clearly gave Beneil round 3. Why? That left hand dropped. Mateusz Gamrot. Now, Mateusz Gamrot was expending a whole lot of energy on trying to take him down. And he was just nonstop relentless, all right? And I originally had thought that, I'm going to place a bet on Mateusz Gamrot. And I hesitated. I stopped. I'm like, why am I going to doubt Beneil Dariush, all right? So many people have doubted this man. People doubted him that he was going to defeat Tony Ferguson, and he dominated Tony Ferguson, all right? I was like, I'm not going to doubt Beneil anymore. I placed a bet on him. Once I saw that him drop, Gamrot with that left hand, and just left him stunned on the floor, I'm like, that's how it is, man. He's going to win this fight. I mean, Beneil did win the fight by decision. What's next for Beneil Dariush? In my personal opinion, I think it's the fight to me. Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush. Make that fight happen in Rio de Janeiro. I know they would love to have Charles on that Rio card in January. So why don't you make that fight happen in UFC? Beneil wants to fight. He wants to be active. Charles wants to fight in Rio. Make that fight happen, okay? And then opener of the main card was Katlyn Chookagian versus Manny Fiorito. It was a very much Katlyn Chookagian type of a match. Okay. I felt like round 1 was Manning, round 2 was Katlyn, and round 3, if Katlyn Chookagian didn't get taken down by Manny Fiorito in the last minute of round 3, we would be talking about how it's death, taxes, and Katlyn Chookagian by victory due to a decision. All right. But didn't happen. Manny Fiorito wins. What's going to happen next? I don't think she did enough to garnish a title shot. I think the next shot for her would have to be, her next bout would have to be her against Alexa Grasso. Winner of that then gets a title shot. Or unless they want to put her against maybe Tyler Santos or something like that. Something of that nature. Personally, I want to go into the prelims for 2 fights, if anything, 2-3 fights. Prelim fight, Bilal Muhammad versus Sean Brady. I was rooting for Sean Brady. I'm not gonna lie, man was undefeated coming into this fight. Bilal Muhammad, I've made fun of him, but I can't make fun of him after this performance because, man, oh man, this guy was phenomenal in his approach in this fight tonight. I don't know if it's because he got disrespected or not, but one thing I learned is you never bet against Coach Khabib. And Coach Khabib ended up cornering Bilal Muhammad, and I should have cashed out on my parlay. He ruined one of my parlays, Bilal Muhammad, but he was phenomenal, applying pressure, throwing combinations, hurting Sean Brady on the feet. Something that I didn't expect to happen, nor I even expected the fight to even be a striking matchup. Okay, Bilal did stuff a couple of the takedowns that Brady was trying to impose, but Bilal was able to get the referee to stop the fight because he was beating up Sean Brady on the feet, hurt him pretty bad, and Bilal actually now deserves some type of, an applause on his performance. He was about to call out Leon Edwards, and I promise you, I was gonna throw my phone across the room when he was about to thinking that he was gonna call out for a title shot. But when he called out Hamza Chimaev, I'm like, all right, I think that's a fight that you deserve, as opposed to you asking for a title shot. If you could fight like that, then you're gonna have a lot more fans that are gonna be rooting for you. All right. Another fight I wanted to talk about was Nikita Krylov versus Volkan Ozdemir. That's a fight that I was very highly anticipated about. I thought that wasn't going to be boring. First 10, 15 seconds of the fight, all you see Nikita Krylov rush through, eats everything but the kitchen sink. Volkan Ozdemir was about to drop him, and I'm thinking the fight's about to be over in the first minute and a half. Nikita Krylov was able to, function, and then he responded back. He ended up utilizing his takedowns, and long before hold, Volkan Ozdemir, his gas tank was wearing off. Nikita Krylov was still fatigued. I mean, he was still hurt throughout the fight just because Volkan does crack in his punches. But he was able to, warn her off into a victory for Nikita Krylov. And that man is exciting. I want to see him fight Jamal Hill. I think that'll be in a very, very exciting light heavyweight bout. And then lastly, the Manchester product, the Dagestanian-born Muhammad Makhachev. He fought Malcolm X Gordon. I was impressed in a way on how he was able to, understand, what he was in with. All right. He did need to stop with the whole showmanship just because that is not going to fly with him. Fly with a lot of flyweights as you move up in the rankings. I know he had wanted to call out Brandon Royval. I don't think he's ready for somebody of Brandon Royval's stature, but I do believe that he could possibly, get placed with somebody that's top 15, maybe even as low as like top 10. Okay. I think that he does need a lot of grooming, and he only has about 9 MMA fights in his career. All right, he's undefeated. He defeated Malcolm X Gordon in round 3 by an armbar. All right, he wasn't really doing much with the takedowns. He was getting clipped a little bit as he was, trying to style on Malcolm X Gordon, but Malcolm X Gordon was anticipating all these type of things that were happening. But Muhammad Makhachev is a real deal, guys. I think that he has the ability of becoming a future champ. He's been talking about it nonstop about he's going to be the youngest champ since John Jones. And I believe it, but I just think that he needs to focus, be laser focused when he's inside the octagon instead of him trying to be something of a spectacle. All right, I think those things will come as he starts to get better and better, and as he starts to mature. But right now, I think he just needs to go inside the octagon, get what he needs to get done, and then worry about the showmanship later on. All right, I think that he's going to get fans from all over the world to watch his fights. And I think this is possibly the last time we ever see Muhammad Makhachev fight in the early prelims. I think moving on forward, it's feature prelim on a pay-per-view card maybe, or it's maybe main card on a fight night. But I don't think it's no more early prelims. But yeah, guys, that concludes everything for UFC 280. Islam Makhachev gets it done. All right, he stops Charles Oliveira. He becomes the new lightweight champion of the world. Father's plan goes into existence. Khabib, what did I tell you before? You never bet on Coach Khabib. He was successful. He was 3-0, getting victories for Abubakar Nurmagomedov, for Sean Brady, and now Islam Makhachev. All right, guys. Until then, guys, I am Flavio Ariana. Thank you for tuning in to Flavio Ariana's MMA show, and I will see you guys next time. Peace, guys, and have a good one. See ya.